Cheers, guys. Epix 911, welcome to the Wednesday, April 12th, 2017 edition of VR News. Still coming to you from the beige draped hotel here in Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada. Very foggy day today, and also a day, guys, where I started jonesing for my man cave, specifically my VR games, to get some quick look series gaming up. And the reason for that is today's news, very gaming centric, and just some amazing titles to talk about. Let's start with the first one, Primordian. Now, according to those who've seen this game, Primordian is a mix of Turok, which is one of the N64's title, very popular, and Predator. So it's kind of got that feel of you being hunted in a very, very lush jungle, which in my opinion looks easily as good, if not better, than Robinson the Journey. Graphically, it looks great. I hope the gameplay matches, but what a lot of people who've seen the game say is its best feature is by far the setting. They really nailed the setting, and it's one of the things that made Robinson a good game, or at least one of its better traits, let's put it that way. Ultimately, it may not have been a good game, but I think most people agreed the setting was pretty cool. They did a good job on creating a convincing kind of prehistoric jungle setting. Well, Primordian does as well, but with a lot more gore and guts thrown in. So, interesting. The developers for it are called Stonepunk. Very curious what the end product will look like. Next game, guys, Rick and Morty Virtual Rick-Ality. It just doesn't stop with the VR name, and does it? Yeah, Virtual Rick-Ality. I just wish that would stop. But anyways, I digress. Let's talk about the game. The game is from the same folks behind Job Simulator, which of course is Alchemy Labs. And what I didn't know, but found out in researching Rick and Morty, is that they spent 80 hours developing the coffee machine sequence in Job Simulator just to get it to look and feel like a real life coffee machine, which shows you how time consuming just getting things just so in VR can potentially be. So very cool. But anyways, back to this. If you're a Rick and Morty fan, look for that April 20th, Rift and Vive. Next game, not really a game actually, not a game at all, a graphic novel. And this is from a company called Spiraloid Workshop Company. And it's a graphic novel built from the ground up called Nanite Fulcrum. What I love about this is how they never try to pretend they're an experience, they're a movie, a game. They never try and be anything other than a graphic novel. So it's got that classy graphic novel look and presentation, but super immersive looking, like it really draws you in. And what I mean by that graphic novel look is the traditional comic paneling with that lush, colorful graphic novel artwork that you kind of grown accustomed to with graphic novels. So really excited about that. Definitely a must-see on my personal list that I want to check out. It's going to be free via the Oculus Store. No word on whether Vive folks or PlayStation VR or anybody else is going to get it. Even Gear VR, not sure. They didn't make that clear, but for sure free for the Oculus Rift. So if you're a graphic novel fan, check that out. VR comic, Nanite Fulcrum. Now, this next story is a little bit hype central, guys, and interesting enough, it is yet again AMD involved in virtual reality. So we've talked about them several times in the last few weeks, and they seem to be getting more and more invested with virtual reality technology. At first, it was their graphic card lineup, their driver support, then, of course, the acquisition of a specific wireless VR gaming company, not making games, but wireless VR for VR gaming. And now this statement from Vice President Roy Taylor. So this is what he had to say, speaking at the Virtual Reality World Congress about Fallout 4. He likened Fallout 4 to the Mario the Sonic the Hedgehog of the VR industry. It will change the way we think about VR. It will be an industry changer. Now, those are heavy, hype-filled words, but imagine if they come anywhere close to reality. If there's one game I can think of that has that potential, even though it's very niche in terms of being an RPG, and not just being an RPG, but not being a fantasy one, being very post-apocalyptic, that really kind of sets itself apart from even the RPG mainstream. I still think it has a chance to just be amazing because it's such an involved RPG. It's already first person. It's got literally dozens and dozens of hours of gameplay, and that's usually one of the complaints. We're actually going to talk about some survey results on that, but one of the complaints we talk about here lots on the channel is the length of the experiences. That fine, we'll deal with them being short, we just wish they would be longer. And moving forward, I think we're seeing that become the reality, and we're also turning that corner towards finally getting the type of games that we want to get excited about. Now, I know there's a portion of you that wish we wouldn't spend time, or the industry wouldn't spend time, just turning older games into VR, and I get that. I personally don't have a problem with that as long as it doesn't come at the expense of moving forward with new VR games. In other words, if Bethesda had had no desire to create a new VR game, fine. Convert one of your old ones. And if it is as popular as Roy seems to think it will be, that will be a catalyst for them making new IP specifically in virtual reality. So I'm willing to give it a chance. I hope it has mod support. Even if it's not existing mods, new mods specifically for it moving forward. I think that's a super huge component. And that's just going to give it really, really long legs and allow you to enjoy it in VR for a long time to come. So that is Roy Taylor from AMD on Fallout 4. Last game in this roundup, guys, the flight simulator IL-2 or IL-2 Sturmovik. Never been shy about the fact that I love cockpit VR games, whether it's space-based, racing, or flight sim-based, even flight action. And this is squarely in the flight sim base. This company understands World War II era planes probably better than most. And if I had to pick two, you think about it, a lot of the space games that we like, the Wing Commanders, the Elites, the type of combat they're presenting, that's not real space combat. Real space combat following Newtonian physics, guys, go play the second and third Elite games, and they're called Frontier. You'll understand what real space combat would look like. It ain't fun. I mean, it can be, I guess, to some people who are real big math geeks, if you're like slinging past each other with, no friction. But what they've chosen to do to not make it tedious and boring is emulate what? Well, World War I, biplane, triplane era dogfighting, and of course World War II. Because jets, it's not about dogfighting and getting up close. They've established who's going to win, usually kilometers apart from each other. So yeah, I got a big love on for World War II and World War I. Having this in VR, it's a 2013 game, granted 4 years old now, I think is going to be freaking amazing. Can't wait to see it. Can't wait. Next up, another company, the second big company, or second company, let's say, that's focused on facial expressions. Except these guys are doing it a little bit different. So this is Mindmaze, and it's a hardware and a software component. The hardware apparently can attach itself, it's very lightweight, foamy in fact, to any HMD that is out there right now. And also has a software component. Not only does it capture facial expressions, it captures those preemptively. I know that sounds weird. You're thinking, you just said preemptively. Yes, I did. Supposedly, they can capture your facial expressions before you even make them. And one of the things that they're really gearing this towards is social VR. And It's why I love so much and why I harp on it when outside VR people say it's not a social experience. And yet we've got these cool technologies that could make it the best social experience ever, right? So apparently with their software and hardware, doesn't read your facial expression as you make it, but according to them, instead predicts the expression you're going to make and then relays that to a VR avatar, creating what the company claims is a responsive and convincing system. Now, they get a little technical here, but it's technical in the sense that they could just be making up these words, right? The platform uses machine learning and biosignal processing to read the electrical impulses in a user's face and register the expression they're about to make tens of milliseconds before it appears on your face. Now, those are all real scientific things. Yes, I'm joking with that, but where I could see this being really cool, not just social, which is kind of what they're aiming at, but imagine just doing board games with people, tabletop, chess, poker, and having that ability to, and it'll be equal. Everyone will be on equal footing, but what that will add, being able to do the type of bluffing that you would do in a real poker game, sitting at a table with real people, something that currently cannot be done online with video poker, unless, of course, there's a camera feed, right? Like a Skype-style camera feed. There are a few that do that, absolutely. So very, very cool. Now, these guys have raised $100 million, Mindmaze has, US. They're not in danger of closing down anytime soon, but hopefully, and I've said this about a couple of other interesting companies, they do come up with some kind of model to start a positive revenue stream at some point in their future. Next story has to do with a survey. And the survey was done by a company called VR Intelligence and a virtual reality expo organization, VRX. And they did this at their North American Expo, surveying 523 VR industry people. It's not interesting in how it breaks down, but let's talk about that. So it breaks down of the 523 people, 48% are VR, the largest responders, broadcasters and devs make up 48%. VR tech providers make up 20%, consultants and the press, so your Upload VRs, your Road to VRs, VentureBeats, etc., they make up 18%, and then finally the end users, the you and me's that are walking around the expo, 14%. So that's what that 523 is comprised of. Now let's talk about the survey. So the first graph that I've got up here is interesting because it's got two parts to it. They're all asked the same question, both sides. So left is VR tech providers and right side is content creators. And they're asked about the barriers to VR, the current barriers that they feel are preventing VR from mass adoption. And it's interesting because both sides are fairly close percentage-wise. They're off a bit, but they're within, 4 or 5% kind of margin of error between the two, and broke down their responses roughly the same. And the two largest, price, of course, and lack of content. Both topics that we have spoken about quite frequently here as well. So that's interesting, but kind of common sense. The second graph, though, shows the industry's interested in virtual reality. And this is the one that has me really excited because we've talked about so many of these, the medical, the education, etc. That graph just does a terrific job of showing you why I personally don't think VR is going anywhere. There might be some pauses on adoption rate of consumers, but if they can nail these other industries, it's not going anywhere. And gaming will cling on, and it will get to a point where there is mass adoption. It just may take a little longer. Last story, guys, the new Gear VR promotion that I talked about the other day. What's interesting about that is not the promotion itself, but go to the entry page, and Upload VR brought this up. Go to the entry page and look and see how you sign up for that promotion. Center, very large text button to sign in with your Facebook account. down far below in a much smaller font, you are also able to, if you don't have Facebook, sign in with your Oculus username and password. What's interesting about that is there are a few articles today floating around, and I thought I'd kind of condense them into this one last one on how Facebook is almost complete in its assimilation of Oculus. We've talked about all the previous signs. We talked about, Arib getting shuffled, Palmer leaving, the trial, Arib moving, them doing away with the CEO position. Those are all things that, yes, do happen generally in acquisitions. But when you start seeing stuff like this, when you see the Oculus logo embedded within a much larger Facebook logo, it's pretty clear what they're trying to do. They want you to make the connection between VR be with Facebook, not with Oculus. Now, Oculus is a brand. They're going to keep it around, not saying that they're going to phase it out. Neither are these other news agencies reporting on it. But it is clear that they want to raise the profile of Facebook within relation to VR. And I guess if you spend $3+ billion purchasing a company, you have that right, whether we agree with it or not. Interested in your thoughts, guys? Let me know in the comments below. That is it for this episode. I am probably going to crash. No, I will play my 3DS. I am playing Dragon Quest VIII. Why? Because I don't have gaming VR goodness at my fingertips. Guys, cheers. Catch you next time.